Hello, Kendall.
Hi, Greg. It's been a minute. How are you?
It's I don't know. It's just insane that we're actually starting this up. I guess we said we weren't doing seasons, but this is basically the start of season two.
I mean, pretty much. We took a 2 month break, and then also I fully thought that this was going to be the end. Like we could have fully left it, never picked it back up, and that would have been it.
Mm-hmm.
But here we are, back and shinier than ever.
Yes. Also, anyone listening, yes, Kendall's audio is crunchy as hell. Yes. We're trying to figure out this whole,
Hmm.
you know, transnational. Is that how you would say it? Like different parts of the nation. Anyway, like he's in Colorado, I'm in North Carolina, and we literally did a practice run of this last week. We had video perfect, we had audio perfect, and Kendall managed to
Hmm.
fuck it all up. I don't know what he did.
I don't know to say I fucked it up. I would say that I um, am doing the best that I fucking can.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying on these AirPods, but I don't. Maybe is there a way we could hook up my mic? Maybe we should try. Hold on, because I do still
All
have
right,
it.
we're gonna go for another round, everybody. We are back, and guess who's not crunchy?
Not me. It couldn't be me. Who? It would never be me.
Mm-hmm. And
I
now
don't know who that
Kendall's.
was.
When we tried the first time figuring this out, Kendall's really sad. He's like, I'm out of my mic era, and he said he was gonna create something just to
Yeah,
hold the whole time. And look, you got your mic back.
yeah. And that's on ADHD. I was gonna hold something the whole time. Like this feels right. It
Mm-hmm.
is exactly what it's supposed to be. So here we are,
Yes. So, do you
and
want to
the microphone
like
is back.
share any big updates? Because last time we like recorded together, you were here in North Carolina preparing for your move.
Yeah.
We were talking about World of Warcraft. You didn't even present your
This is
thing.
red wine. We switched to filming in the evening, so this might be a thing.
Yeah, it's an evening thing
Um.
now. But like you
Okay.
were had this like you were getting ready to go. Now you've moved, new job, kind of.
Yes. So picked up life,
Mm-hmm.
and I am now a Coloradan.
Is
I
that
moved to
really what it is?
Colorado.
A
I
Coloradan?
don't know. I hate it.
Uh huh.
Um, I'm not telling anybody what specific city, but I am in Colorado. The whole state. Feel free to come find me.
Huh.
Okay, but yeah. So I moved to. I really want to make you bleep it again. I
Kendall.
really. Yeah. Okay. I
Uh
moved to the
huh.
state of Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm 2 hours behind. I'm out here on some journey, finding myself, um, doing a bunch of stuff. It's been like probably 3 months, 2.5 months, maybe almost 3 months since we've recorded. Just because within the last 3 months, like I said before, before I moved, like it was a farewell tour.
Mm-hmm.
I was absolutely fucking out of it. The move was fun. I got to spend 3 days driving across the country, and I saw the world's largest ball of twine. And my
Yeah.
roommate has a cat, and we decided, oh my god, like this cat's definitely gonna want to see it. But she's a very anxious cat, so she was like drugged out and super loopy. So we have
Mm-hmm.
photos of her, and she's just like literally sitting there, like
Alice
in
gave
front of
no
this twine
shits.
ball.
Alice
Yeah,
did not care.
Alice did not care.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So, yeah, I had fun traveling. Moved here. Um, no furniture. It took a while. Then eventually it came in. Slowly building up. A disco ball is here.
This is
I have a
literally
whole
brand
shelf
new
here.
because
Yes.
when we were practicing for last week, it was literally just Kendall sitting in a white corner.
Yeah. And then
Mm-hmm.
obviously we're having to figure things out because, we got the AirPod in here now. I don't know if I really like it's not that cute. I'm gonna have to figure something out. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but everything's slowly coming together. I'm out here. I've made it. I moved. Honestly, there was like a minute where I was like, everything's different. I moved. This is amazing. And then now it's kind of turned into, um, okay, I'm just like living the same life here because I transferred jobs. So
Mm-hmm.
like still kind of working a very similar corporate life, and fucking it up as I always do, still doing great at it. But I like took a step down because I was like in management in my last job. Took a step back down. I'm back on the floor with everyone else, um, and just trying to slowly lean into things. I'm really trying to push myself to like move, and I'm like, I didn't move here to be the same person I was, so I'm trying a bunch of new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I found a writer workshop and was immediately humbled and intimidated and inspired.
Uh-huh.
So I called Greg and had an entire crisis about it yesterday. But
You did.
um, I'm excited. We're trying new things. We're trying to push ourselves into hobbies and bringing back the podcast. So what have you been up to for 2 months, Greg?
First off, the podcast being on hiatus, I've had more free time than I ever meant to. Okay, so when I first started, because I have my own separate YouTube thing, in case you didn't know, and over there I used to do a gaming video and then like a doll video every single week. And then we started the podcast, and I kind of put the gaming thing to the side. I was like, I cannot be making 3 videos a week. And then when the podcast went on pause, I was like, okay, I can pick up the gaming content, or I can just do my own gaming. So I've been all over the place. I've had my own chaotic sim family that I told you about one time, all the different supernatural quadruplets family. I've
Mm,
been
yes.
actually going to the gym each day because I was like dipping out here and there with when it came to the gym. So going to the gym, actually just taking time to play video games, working on hobbies. But now I'm just like, which I'm not gonna get too deep into. We'll probably see as time progresses. But
Yeah.
I'm like dealing with the stress of 100 things move. The end of this year is gonna be chaotic for me. Like the summer was your
Mm,
chaos time, my chaos time is coming. So that's like approaching, but I can't. It's too early to do anything about it yet. But it's close enough that I know it's coming. So it's just kind of like stressful.
and you know what? We get it from our mother. We love to stress about the stress that we will be stressing through.
Thanks, Stacy.
Um, yeah.
Hmm.
Love you, mom, if you listen. I don't
Yes.
even, do you think she listens? Okay.
Absolutely not.
Oh,
No. No one.
oh,
Okay. The
oh.
only person that I know in our family that listens is Danny listens sometimes, and then Dad listens. And you
Our
know
biggest
what?
half supporter.
If I were ever to pick 2 people in our family, they would be the last two I'd pick to think that would listen to our stuff, you know?
No, because I told you that no, because we hadn't filmed an episode since. So dad started listening to the podcast with me in his truck when
Uh huh.
I was driving my a truck up to our uncle,
Mm hmm.
and so uncle lives with mom, and
Mm hmm.
driving the truck up for him. He's like, "Oh yeah, I heard you guys started a podcast. Like, you guys should play it for me." I'm like, "Okay," and then I'm just like, I don't. I don't know. I felt weird about episode one because that was literally about me like reeling from a situationship and
Uh
trying to
huh.
love myself. And I
Right.
was like, I guess I'll play two. And it was so weird. Like I had to listen to myself. I had
Uh
to
huh.
listen to us. We were funny. I still stand by Country Bear Hall favorite episode that I researched for,
Mm hmm.
recorded, and you censored me on because you had to cut like 30 minutes worth of
So
footage.
much.
Um,
Your
yes,
review was longer
I
than
should
the
have done my own
actual
episode,
movie.
honestly.
Your review
Yeah,
was longer than the movie. That's insane.
and I wanted you to feel like you were watching it with
I
me, and so I
did.
made it just as long. You
I
could have
did.
played it beside the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that was yeah, a whole thing. So
Mm-hmm.
all that to say, Dad does listen,
Mm-hmm. No,
and
he's
I was
asked
there for
me,
it, and it was an
like,
out of body experience.
since you moved, he came up to me one day. He's like, "When's the new episode?" And I was like, "Calm down, calm down." But yes, Dad, thanks for being a
It's
supporter.
when we feel like it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because okay, while we're recording this, I still haven't even posted our finale episode.
Greg.
You didn't even
That was
know.
it was not even a. It's not. Okay, I mean, true, but I've been busy hiking and moving and living my new life
I
as
mean,
new
it's
me.
it's gonna be going up. We have to. That'll be later stuff, but like it's going up
How are we
very
gonna
soon.
post the finale and then a week later post season two? Okay, we need to post that this week.
But the
Write
thing
it
is,
down, people.
nobody would have known.
Um,
You just exposed the timeline. I guess I
yeah,
exposed the timeline.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This okay. Look at me willing to accept your guilt. Middle children problems.
Uh huh.
Shout out to all my middle kids who
Right.
deal with their older siblings and their tirades.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I'm glad life has been moving for you and you've had more time. I honestly had
Yes.
more time as well. Um,
I haven't been productive with all the time
and
though. There's also times I just lay on the bed and sprawl TikTok and take naps, and then I like that's a whole nother spiral. It's like you're being so unproductive. What is your
I
life
don't know how to
doing?
relax. That's what I
No.
figured out. Like, I feel
Mm-mm.
good about myself in the morning when I'm like, I have 1,000 things to do until I go to bed tonight. Um, I don't love it. It should probably be fixed one day, but for now, while I'm in my 20s and my hairline hasn't receded yet, we're gonna keep using it.
Uh huh.
Which is also another crisis that I went through this week where I kind of noticed little parts of my hairline are receding. They're falling back.
Girl, same.
Um,
Oh my gosh. Okay,
and
this is totally random for you, it makes nothing for you, but Danny's home and I can smell arepa. So I know after this podcast, I'm going to have a fresh arepa and I'm so excited. But back to the hairline,
Lovely.
yes. Like,
Mm-hmm.
look at this. Look at this.
Yeah.
Exposing.
Yeah. I mean, like, for the most part, it's even, but you know, when we do that, you can tell. But I think my
Well,
hair is just wavy too, so it's not doing me favors, and I'm not about to mess it up. I literally styled it this way on purpose, and it keeps falling out.
we'll see.
But we're
I
here.
was more or less fine, but you know this. Like growing up, I've always had a super thick head of hair. Like I'd say I have like
Mm,
normal amount of hair. You know, like it's pretty much like normal person amount now. But at the beginning of COVID,
mm,
I started working out like crazy because there was nothing else to do. I was in a new relationship. Danny's very much into fitness, so I was like, "Yeah, I'll go work out with you." And I was doing these insane workouts outside in the summer, like where Danny lived. He had this tennis court, and we'd go do outdoor exercises. The most intense exercises of my life. It was basically like hit workouts every single day, and I was losing weight so quickly that my hair started thinning and I started losing my shit. Like I was freaking out. Like I think you may remember me at that time, but like I was
mm-hmm.
like thinning a lot, especially in the front. And it's come back now like a lot, but now I'm so like overly aware of my hair ever since then.
And you know what? I think we're just getting old. We have to accept that. I'm in the middle of like where I moved
Mm-hmm.
from my balcony. I can see a Botox spot. I can see a place that does fillers and skincare.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just like, I'm not going to, but I could.
Oh, I
But
100% am
should I?
going
Because
to.
there's clearly like there's a wrinkle right here. I mean, we sound very vain. I'm thankful for the
No,
years that I'm
I
living,
would
that I'm
no
getting
no
to
no.
age.
I
But
fully believe like do what
mhm,
you want. I'm like not pro or against like plastic surgery or anything like that or like face work. It's your face. Do what you want with it. You're the one that's got to deal with it. That's how I feel. I was like, if you don't
right,
like it,
like
don't get it. If you love it, get everything. If you want like so the people who go to the extreme ends and they're like, I want to look like a Barbie. If that makes you happy, go do it. You know, like do your own
for
thing.
bodily
Me,
autonomy.
exactly. Me personally, I know one day I'm going to get something for sure. Like I definitely see myself like getting the like daddy makeover and stuff that people get when they're like heading into their 40s. It's like the daddy refresh or 30
Mhm.
refresh, whatever they call it. I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll probably get one of those."
I mean, yeah, and because the TikTok aging filter, she let me know what's in store,
You and
and
me
we're gonna
had a
have to be
moment.
changing store locations.
You and me both had a moment where we were sending it back and forth and your aging filter it shook and I was like I would
Shut up, bitch. I'm like, I turned into a cute old
No,
man.
the problem
That's what
was is
happened.
that you pulled your you had like wet hair and you pulled your hair all the way back and then you did the age filter and I was like, "Oof."
And in the moment of vulnerability, it wasn't wet. It was just like the morning after I had like been out and I just like combed it back and put it in a man bun when it used to be long. Um,
But no, it was like super flat
and
and pulled back and you were in a slightly badly lit room. So it looked like your hairline started back here and then you threw the age filter on it, which that is not where your
I
hairline
mean,
was
the
at, but
hairline might.
okay,
But you
maybe
know what? They keep saying the hairline comes from your mother, and if that is the case, then we're in good hands because none
we
of
should be
mom's
fine.
brothers balded at all. They still have full flowing locks. They still
Mhm.
have the flow. But the thing that bothers me is everybody tells me my hair looks so similar to
To
what dad's used to
dads.
look like.
Mhm.
And you know, shout out to you, Dad. I love you, but I don't want your hairline or hair genetics.
Uh-huh. Well,
Um,
that's the thing. We have
so
our mom on our mom's side, super thick head of hair. The men don't bald anything. Like literally, we had an uncle who had hair down to here in his like what 60s, almost 70s or something, like
yeah,
full heads of hair. Then we have our dad's side of the family where the women are even balding. So it's like, where's it gonna go?
yeah, and you know, hopefully it stays exactly on my head.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? I've appreciated all the glorious years I've had with my hair. So we'll see what it goes through, but just best believe that when it starts receding, I will be like acting immediately. It's only got about two more follicle rows to go back before we start fucking shit up and
Mm-hmm.
taking control. Um,
Taking control is in
but
like shaving it or like the what's the procedure where they do
oh
the
no, if you shave it, I hear it doesn't grow back. So I'm like, I will be having flowing haircuts until I can't do them anymore. That's how I feel right now. Of course, it
mm-hmm.
just depends on where we end up.
But I guess
So
that's
yeah,
enough of an intro. Like we, caught up, we're living
we're
life.
back.
Mm-hmm.
We're moved. We enjoyed our free time, our little summer break from our own project
Yes.
that we put on ourselves.
Mm-hmm. But I'm happy
And
to have it back, honestly.
now I'm ready to crack into some stories and
Mm-hmm.
let you know why I'm dressed so bedazzled.
Yes, I go straight into your outfit because I'm so excited to find out why you look like a disco ball. I
Thank
think it's
you.
just the disco ball next
Um,
to you while you're wearing the top.
oh my God, I have to film my own outfit footage now. We're gonna figure that out. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so right now we have the black fur jacket that I got
Yes.
from Boohoo Men. I'll do this just to see a little black fur moment.
That'll be
And again,
nice when
all of
it's
these are
winter.
clothes that I personally have in my personal wardrobe, and I will be whipping this out when it gets cold out here.
Mm-hmm.
We have the black fur jacket. Then we have these arm length, which I guess I can kind of show that the gloves go all the way up to the middle of my arm.
Mm-hmm.
These were in front of Beyonce, so please pay them some respect.
Yes,
I
the
did take them
Renaissance
and wear them to the
gloves.
Renaissance. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. Then we have our handy dandy pearl necklace. Then we have this little disco ball
Okay, I
tank
don't know
top.
what you're
That was
doing,
part of a
but
short set.
you can probably see where it's cutting off. It looks like you're just grabbing your tit and you're just like,
It was flat, but we can do that.
mm-hmm.
Um, but the outfit is meant to be old Hollywood glamour. So I went for a fur
Ooh.
coat, pearl, silver metallic gloves. I was like, if I was invited to a runway and all I had was the stuff in my closet,
Mm-hmm.
what would be the fit? And this was it. And I guess I could stand up and show. Um, there's like fully these pleated pants I'm wearing,
I don't think they're gonna
which
show that
also this
well,
has like a
Kendall.
whole gape in the side. Yeah, I mean, maybe we can cut that part, but
No, no, no. We keep it. I was
yeah,
just saying it just wasn't showing much. It showed your
they're
belt.
pleated pants. Don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
They're like high waisted pleated pants, which are very
Mm-hmm.
50s men. So I took my own personal, fun, dramatic take on what I would wear and would want to look like. Although, of course, if I had a whole design team, it'd be a different story. But based on what's in Kendall's closet,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then my hair, I tried to like part it 50s, but like it's cut and I've been letting it grow. So it's a little bit hard, but it's doing like that little like 50s women's hoop thing right here right now. So
Mm-hmm.
it's doing what it had to do.
Right.
And then freshly shaven face because we don't do facial hair for
Mm-hmm.
old Hollywood glamour.
You know what
So
I
that is
love?
Kendall's oot for today, and I'm so excited to take my own photo. I'm gonna do something so old Hollywood glamour. I'm gonna have to figure it out. We'll figure it out.
Yes. But what's
Mhm.
actually really cool about that is okay, it's not fully because you're talking like Hollywood in the 1950s basically, but I've
Mhm.
been every once in a while I like to listen to like podcasts and stuff while I work. What I've been listening to like this week or a bit of last week and a bit of this week. Usually it's like ancient civilization stuff like that, but every once in a while I need a little bit of variety. And I've been listening to the golden age of Hollywood crimes, like the Black Dahlia and stuff like that.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, and also, me and Greg both do true crime,
Yes.
and that's
Mm-hmm.
because of our mom. Like, we literally grew up, like, our dad was the one watching Desperate Housewives, Grey's
Grey's
Anatomy,
Anatomy.
all
Mm-hmm.
of like the typical chick flick shows, right? And then our mom was like over here watching CSI, Paranormal Investigators,
48
and like
Hours.
First 48.
America's Most
Yes,
Wanted.
like,
I
oh,
hated
I
that one
forgot
the
to show
most.
rings as well.
Ooh,
This
she
ring,
sparkles.
yeah, I love her.
Mm-hmm.
So this ring is actually, well, I guess I can do this. So this one is actually a ring from our great grandma on mom's side. So mom's grandma.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when our aunt passed, she had some jewelry, and this was just like an old piece of costume jewelry she had. So it's like super old, and I love it. Then this here is a ring that Taryn got me when she just went to New York, and it is a poison ring.
Ooh, that is so cool.
Yeah, so that's why it really ties into your murder thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's orange. I'm slowly collecting. Silver's cheaper, so we're collecting those a little bit quicker. But I'm
Yeah,
getting
you've
like
been a gold guy.
all of the stone colors. Oh, I love gold. So, old Hollywood glamour. Because today, Greg, I
Mm-hmm.
I just felt a little obsessed. It's been, old 50s, old Hollywood has constantly been an obsession of mine for forever.
Mm-hmm.
As with every gay, it started with Marilyn Monroe. And then there was just someone's name that I'd always heard. And I was like, I don't know their story, but I know they're iconic. And so I sat down, learned a
Mm-hmm.
little information. And today I am so excited to share with you the life and trials and tragedies of Miss Rita Hayworth.
Oh, okay. I actually like
Yeah.
that. I feel like you before the education. Like I've heard the name and I know of the name, but I don't know as much as I should.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited to hop in and tell you all about her. But first, I think we have your doll of the episode, don't we?
Yes, but I'm gonna be introducing my subject is because I've cheated. Because as you can see, it's not dolls there, it's Pokemon as well as Pokemon. So my obsession is gonna be Pokemon this episode.
So
Ooh.
your plushie of the episode?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
But also, I
You're
still can
winning
give a
your little chicken
story.
dinner.
I can still give a story with these two because they are both very special because they are both from Tokyo, Japan. Like, does it say it on here? It just says Pokemon Center. But they're both from the Pokemon Center in Tokyo, Japan. So we have Piplup, one of my favorites, of course. So soft, so great. We have a couple other plushies that are usually where Kendall used to sit recording. That's why I said I chose these two. It made it sound like there were more, but I didn't clarify there's more. We have more. But this one, very special. But then there's this one too that is super special. So also from Tokyo, Japan, and this is they have the little Pikachu Sweets Cafe. So there's a Pokemon cafe in Tokyo that's like a whole themed cafe. But then at one of the Pokemon centers next door, they have the miniature version of it, and that's where I went to, and they had their little mascot that you could buy. So we got the pink one. She was the only one on sale, but she's also the only one I wanted. Danny really wanted the green one.
She's cute though. Look
She's
at her
so
little
cute.
pinstripe.
And
She kind of
then
looks like a railroad worker a little bit, in my opinion.
right,
But
and then she has a heart tail, so you know it's a girl. Because
oh,
Pikachu
I
usually
didn't
has
even know that was a thing.
yeah, males have a straight edged tail and the girls have like a little heart shape on the end of their tail. So she actually is a girl.
Oh,
And she was the only one with the heart shaped
oh,
tail. The other two were boys. So like that makes her extra cute. And so yeah, they had like a whole statue of this Pikachu and everything. I can put up a photo. But
oh. Mhm.
yeah, so they're both from Tokyo,
Also, I'm
Japan.
looking down. Yeah, I know the like to people that are watching this on YouTube, I'm like looking at the very bottom corner, but like camera's here for me, and then
Oh,
Greg's sharing his screen here, so
fully.
it's
I'm
gonna be a little bit
constantly
off.
like looking like I'm looking direct like, Brady Bunch like I'm looking into your square because for me, you're down here but the camera's right here. So I'm like constantly
Yeah,
back and forth.
yours makes sense though, because you're in the top corner. I just look like I'm like a little bit shy, like ooh.
Uh-huh. But yeah, so this time I just have my Piplup and Pikachu from Pikachu Cafe. I didn't want to say Pikachu Cafe. But anyway, yeah, they're both from Tokyo,
Mm,
very special, very
they're
cute.
cute.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
And
little
my
world
obsession
travelers more
is
than
gonna
me.
be Pokemon, exactly. But
I
you
love
should
it.
go first because our last episode we started with my subject and ended up just sharing it. So it's definitely your turn.
I don't even remember what I had for my last subject.
You literally said
Okay.
you're like I barely did any research and it's not that important. Go ahead. I'm more interested in your topic
Okay,
anyway.
perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if I still have the notes for that. Might
Mm.
reuse that. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, cool.
Okay, Kendall. I'm ready to hear all about Rita Hayworth.
Yes, Miss Rita Hayworth, the icon. I have like literally like
Not
notebook paper
handwritten
notes.
notes.
Yeah, I know. So I will be fiddling around with stuff over here. But first I want to say like, what do you know about Rita Hayworth? Like basic information. Do you even know anything?
No, I literally just know she's like some type of famous, I'm guessing actress. That's all I have.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Here, I can Google a photo of
She,
her to see if I even know who she is. You
yes,
can keep going though.
because I did research. I'm gonna shout out my sources right now. Um, I went on YouTube and there was literally a documentary. This is called Life of Rita Hayworth,
Oh my
and I
gosh.
watched that.
Okay,
And there's another
icon.
YouTube channel. I know. Okay, so there's another YouTuber. Her name is
Wow.
Karina Lord. I love her.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to a bunch of her videos, and she actually did a video of this years ago, and that was something that I just thought of randomly. Like it just hit me. I was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I remember that was interesting to me. So I'm like, I'll look into her. Um, then I also did a little bit of Wikipedia. So there's my sources. I'll do a little journalistic integrity.
Mm-hmm.
So Rita Hayworth is known as the most photographed Hollywood actress. Like there's over 3,000 photos of her. Like if you just
Wow.
look her up, there's just endless photos. And that was something I learned
Mm-hmm.
from Karina Lord. I was like, oh, okay. Didn't even know that was like a feat to have. But I mean, it may have changed by now. She passed away in the 80s. But
Yeah, I'm not gonna
like,
lie. I when I Google imaged her, one of the ones that showed up was her older, and I was like, oh my gosh, she didn't die young. Happy for her.
she was in her 60s. But we'll get to that.
Still a
So,
lot older than a lot of other like famous
yes.
actresses. Mm-hmm.
hmm and she is one of the Hollywood bombshells. She was named the Love Goddess. That was her nickname that
Mm.
the papers gave her when she was in her career. Her career kind of spanned from the late 30s through the early 50s for the most part. That would be most of where people remembered her. She is also one of the four Hollywood Golden Age actresses that inspired Jessica Rabbit. And the part that you can
Uh,
definitely tell is from her is the red hair,
mm-hmm.
because Rita Hayworth had red hair. Now,
I know someone who
another
also
interesting fact.
inspired Jessica Rabbit, Veronica
hmm
Lake.
exactly, the hair.
Mm-hmm.
So, so she was one of the inspirations for that. And then also during World War II, she was the number one pinup girl. And it was this
Ah.
one photo of her, and they call it her negligee, but it's kind of like a lace upper bodice and like silk skirt dress of her in a bed, and everyone had pinup photos of her. Um, but I will take you back to the beginning of Miss Rita Hayworth. And would you like to guess where she is from?
Um. Well, you're saying where she's from? Is she American or no?
Yes, yes,
Oh, okay. Kansas.
absolutely not. She is from, I believe, New York. I'm pretty sure it was in New York.
Mm.
And she was born October 17th, 1918. So our mom's mom, Nanny, is older than her,
Mm.
and she is a Libra, who are known for being flirty and vivacious. Absolutely plays into that. Eventually, I am going to cover astrology, but it like every time I learn about astrology, it goes like 15 layers deeper than the last time I thought I learned about astrology. So I'm just like, I don't even know
That's gonna be a
anything anymore.
multi-part episode, for
It's
sure.
gonna I'll have to do a documentary series on it, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So she was born in 1918, and
Mm-hmm.
she actually was the granddaughter of a man who was a very famous and well-known Spanish dancer from Spain, and he invented a certain style of dance, and he was super well known. And she came from famous entertainment industry roots. Her dad was a dancer.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she was born, she says that from even as early as like 3.5 years old, the second she could start walking, her dad started making her dance. And she had two older brothers that they were kind of made to dance but not really. But she
Mm-hmm.
took up dancing, and she just kind of did it. Her dad made her do it. It was sort of, it's a little bit of that cliche old, Hollywood story of like the super hard father, where like they're like, you're going to Hollywood from the second they were born.
Gotcha.
um so she's in dancing classes, and then she ends up getting singing lessons and acting lessons that just, they keep pushing her. And um when she was around 12 or 13, I heard a little bit of different for both. Her aunt and her dad used to dance together. So then her aunt ends up stepping down, and her dad starts making our girl Rita Hayworth, whose actual name is Margarita Carmen Cancino.
Hmm.
So full Spanish name. And Rita obviously comes from Margarita.
Mm-hmm.
So Margarita and her dad are dancing, and she's super young. She's like 13, and apparently there were child labor laws at this point, God bless. But he used to lie about her age so that she could go perform in clubs and nightclubs. And so
Oh
she,
wow.
from the age of 12 or 13, was like performing in clubs and bars and all of these places with adults. And he used to be like, oh, like that's my wife, or oh, she's just younger than she looks. And he was like forcing her to train and forcing her to go dance. And she
Yikes.
didn't finish high school because she was just so pushed into the industry by her dad. Um, and she was super heavily, um, like put in just all this performance. Like I said, didn't graduate high school.
Mm-hmm.
She made it to ninth grade. And then there's supposed rumors, and I don't know, it feels a little weird, to give too dark, but I think there's some memoirs where essentially her dad was abusive. I think it goes as far as for some to say that he was abusive towards her in a very incestual way, but for
Yikes.
sure he was very hard on her, strict on her,
Mm-hmm.
and just all in super mean to her, very controlling. She had no control over her life. It was dancing, training, or I just practice and training and rehearsals, and then performances, and then back up and doing it all over again. He just kept running her around. Eventually, they landed a pretty good spot in Tijuana, and they were performing there. And he dyed her hair black from a natural brown to give her more of like a mature Latina look, to make her look more like she belonged in that
Mm.
area. And so he kept doing that, and then eventually the family moves to LA at some point,
Mm-hmm.
and they moved in 1926. So she would have been about 8. So that's kind of how she ended up in Tijuana. Was they were in LA. He was doing all these performances, taking her to these clubs and all of that stuff, and then they end up in Tijuana. Um, and then from most of so she did the shows in Tijuana, and then she ended up doing a casino boat off of Long Beach. And so she was just kind of like running around, doing shows, performing. Because she was just so strict and heavy, she actually says that she was very lonely in her childhood and that she didn't often have time to hang out with kids her age, and her mom was kind of her only confidant.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was just very shy and reserved, but when she was on stage, she performed and she did what she had to do. A lot of similar to that trope of Marilyn Monroe, where people will say, she was just so shy and reserved and insecure, but the second a camera came on, it flipped, and she was playing the character of
Yeah.
Marilyn. So just again, one of those tropes that we're seeing. So then at the uh, tender age of about 18, she meets this salesman when
Mm-hmm.
she's in her later teens to 18. His name is Edward C. Jetson. Sorry, I can't write. Um, but when she met him, he started kind of seeing that charm and that star power in her, and so in 1934 she eventually lands her first acting role, and she was listed as Margarita Cancino. And the only reason she got this role was because this guy Jetson had film connections. He was a car salesman, but he had a lot of connections in the film industry,
Mm-hmm.
and so um, she landed that role as Margarita Cancino. She landed a couple smaller roles. I think this is like early 30s Hollywood, so it's not too much going on. And of course, at this time, she has dark hair. She's going by Margarita, so she was only landing ethnic roles. Um, and so that's kind of what she's playing at this time. So in 1937, so 3 years after she kind of lands her first role, so truly she probably was about 15 when she met Jetson. Um, she ends up marrying Jetson. And would you love to know how old Jetson was, Greg?
Way too old to be marrying her.
Yes. Our beautiful Margarita was 18,
Okay.
and Jetson was the ripe age of 40, more than twice her age.
Whoa.
Um, and again, she just somehow ends up back in this loop where her father was controlling. Now she's with Jetson, who's also controlling.
Mm.
The documentary that I watched, they interviewed friends and her daughters, and they said looking back, she realized it was just a business deal for him. She was an investment. He married her, so he had control of her, so he could put her where he wanted her in Hollywood in the show business.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so her family really didn't like this marriage. Who wants their 18-year-old to marry a 40-year-old?
Right.
And so there was a lot of contestant against that, caused some rift in her family, which was already sort of a very toxic balance with her dad being so controlling, and her mom was known to be an alcoholic. So there was just sort of this messy background, and she just marries this man and just tries building her career in Hollywood. Um, then her first big break is that she thinks she lands the lead in this movie called Ramona,
Mm-hmm.
and she's Latina, but old Hollywood doesn't care. They're like, the main character was a Native American woman. They're like, dark hair, tan skin, that works.
Mm.
So she gets this role. Then the studio finds out, comes through, and says no, she's too young, and canceled her role and her contract that she had. Like fully
Whoa.
voided everything. She literally landed this first big lead role, absolutely obliterated, canceled everything. So now
Wow.
she's sort of back at square one, and at this point, it said that Jetson is just kind of like, okay, like we're putting all of our eggs in this basket. It's not working. We got to put even more effort into this. So she recalls living in a house that had no furniture because every single cent of their money went into her looks and her appearances. They started going to as many Hollywood events and buying their way into as many Hollywood events as possible just so she could be photographed. Anything for publicity. If there was a Hollywood premiere, if there was a Hollywood party, if there was a club where they knew executives were hanging out, she was there, she was around them, she was getting photographed, she was getting noticed. Anything that he could do to get her on the big screen. And eventually, this does learn, well, work for her. She ends up getting a contract with Columbia, and she is brought on under the studio chief named Harry Cohn. Sorry,
Mm-hmm.
his name is Harry Cohn, and he works for Columbia. Remember that name. He will be around for a while. So she lands a contract with this man, and immediately they're just like, no, I don't like your name. It's a little too ethnic. So they go with Rita, short for
Mm-hmm.
Margarita, and then they take Hayworth, which is her mother's maiden name. So that is how they come up with Rita Hayworth, which will eventually be her career name.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then in 1939, she's cast next to Cary Grant in the movie Only Angels Have Wings. And this is sort of like the first role where people say that you start to see who Rita Hayworth was. Like, name changed, role next to Cary Grant. I'm not sure how much you know about old Hollywood actors. I've been obsessed with this forever. So I know he's a big deal. He's a big name. He's a super huge actor. He was at the top bill of a lot of movies. Super successful career.
Yeah,
Maybe I'll do a
I've
dive on him
heard
one
of
day.
him. I've heard of him, but I don't know a lot about him.
Mhm. Yes. So she does a role next to him, and then the director for this movie really works with her on making a very soft but sultry performance, and that ends up leaning into what is going to be her signature and what's going to get her that nickname as the love goddess.
Mm.
um, and so another sort of setback she had at this time was, she did get this role next to Cary Grant, and that was a big break for her. But up until that point, kept getting small roles because Harry Cohn, the executive,
Mm-hmm.
was known for signing beautiful women and then being like, "Oh, if you want like a good career, sleep with me." Old Hollywood,
Yeah.
tale as old as time at this point. But she actually refused him, and so this role with Cary Grant was like the first, like somehow just couldn't deny her star power. She made it here, and
Uh.
she ended up getting that role. So she rejected this executive, and it really cost her a while. Um, and then, truly, after this movie with Cary Grant, they're like, okay, you're beautiful, you're great,
Mm-hmm.
but we really aren't getting you where we need you to go. So they're like, what are we going to do? Change everything about you. She went through an appearance change. And she actually went through electrolysis. Do you know what that is?
Heard of it. Don't know what it is.
Chance? It is a hair removal feature where they take a wire, they put it into each hair follicle, zap a shock through that wire, and it causes like a little sting and a little zap because they're electrocuting the follicle and kills it forever. They raised her hairline by an entire inch to give her a more European, broader forehead because at that point she had this very pronounced widow's peak. And so they like zapped her hairline back an inch. And then they took her hair from this black and turned it all the way into this red color that eventually she would be synonymous for. So she had that role, it wasn't doing enough, and they decided to change her entire appearance.
Wow.
Um, so she, in the documentary, they say that she reported it as like one of the most painful procedures that she went through. Again, she just keeps getting these lessons that you have to change who you are. And again, this is old Hollywood. You can't be anything but European
Mm-hmm.
and white centric.
Right.
That's what they wanted. Um, and so at this point, they put her through all these changes. And the executive at Columbia, Harry Cohn, still was just like, I don't really see you. I don't really care about, there's no roles that really speak to me for you. So he actually started lending her out to other studios. And back in the day, something I learned was they would salary actors and actresses. So you wouldn't get paid per movie, you would just get paid a sum per year. And then you had to do and go wherever they told you to. So he literally was like, I'm not putting you in any movies we're producing. I'm just going to keep selling you out to other people. So he started making a lot of money off of her. And of course,
Mm.
the money that Cohn is making is also money that her husband Jetson is making. So she's working super hard, changing everything about herself, and these men are just capitalizing money off of her, getting, of course, their
Old
big buck,
Hollywood,
their big
yeah.
payout. Yeah. Um, and for unfortunately for them, she actually ended up um, getting so much fame, and she got so popular from all these small roles that he was just throwing her out to make money, that she ended up getting super big roles. And she, in 1941, you start to see her cast in this first, she was vixen role sort of idea.
Mm-hmm.
She was, again, that sultry acting has sort of been playing its way through, and now she's getting this sultry role where she plays Danya Soul, and this is her first femme fatale character, which is going to be
Mm.
the a sort of title that is given to most of her roles through much of her peak of her career, so to speak. Through most of the 40s and 50s, she only gets femme fatale roles, and this was where that came from. And the reason she got that role was because she just became too ignorable. She was not able to be ignored anymore. She was such a big star for all of these roles and all of these different films. So she actually got that role through Columbia. And so she truly just starts to get to this point. And again, 41 is 42 is when World War II is happening. So this is where that pinup comes into place. And she just really gains this reputation as wholesome and sensual. She keeps getting these femme fatale roles. She's dancing. She's beautiful. She's gorgeous. She moves. There's this sultry element to her that is so heavily placed. Just gets this big reputation. The men in World War II love her.
Mm-hmm.
So then in 1942, she stars in this movie named My Gal Sal. And I'm not going to name too many of her movies. She was in over 60 movies,
Oh wow.
so many in her career,
Mm-hmm.
and TV shows as well. But, 60 movies. I'm not going to name too many, but pivotal one for her was in 42. She started this movie named My Gal Sal. And she stars alongside this guy named Victor Mature and meets this man. They start an affair
Mm.
while they are filming, files for divorce from Jetson, because again, Jetson's still in the background cashing all of his checks.
Uh-huh.
Files for divorce from Jetson. The divorce isn't even finalized, and she's engaged to Mature, and he goes off to war.
Oof.
Um, then this was so scandalous that Harry Cohn, the executive of Columbia, who again she's still technically employed with,
Mm-hmm.
paid $30,000 in 1942 for Jetson to stay silent and never talk to her again.
Oh.
So Jetson's gone out the picture, divorce signed, no questions.
Mm-hmm.
Today, $30,000 comes to $578,236.
That's a lot of
So he was
money.
paid over $500,000
Uh-huh.
to not talk about the affair and just leave her alone forever. And he
Wow.
does. This is the last I hear of him in any of her story. Um, So then from 1942 until about 44, she's with Victor and she recalls, she's divorced, so she's out from under the control. Victor was the first man that did not try to control her.
Mm.
She had her father, she had Jetson, and she had this Cone guy. Everybody was just, using her for money, using her for acclaims. Um, but of course, her father was a little bit different. Later in life, she does say that she still loves him. That's her dad. So, you know, it was a little bit different than Jetson and Colm. But like these men are using her for money. This is the first relationship she's in where they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's with him for about 2 years, and she's acting and doing different jobs. She says it's the happiest time of her life. And then comes Orson Welles. Do you know anything about him? Possibly any movies he's famous for?
No.
Okay, there's a movie called Citizen Kane, and it's like a indie rave film. Like I hear about it from people who I'm sure it is a good film. I haven't watched it yet because it's from the 50s or 40s,
Mm-hmm.
but it's this super like cutting edge movie for the time. But that director was Orson Welles, and this is before that movie. Orson Welles is reported as seeing her on screen and being like, "I'm gonna marry that woman." Starts writing Rita all of these letters and starts giving like saying all these sweet notes. And in the documentary, they read some of them off, and he's just more or less just like, "I can't think of anyone but you. You are everything, the love of my life. My life won't be complete until I have you. You are everything. You're beautiful. You're gorgeous."
That's
And
a
at this
lot.
time, he was an up and coming director, and he was known as sort of this very cutting edge, smart,
Mm-hmm.
visionary of a director, just
Okay.
someone that was ahead of his time. And so um, he, of course, is known as a genius. And Rita has Victor, but she's intrigued by Orson.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, Rita leaves Victor, who she's engaged to because they got engaged before he went off to the war. Um, and then now she's with Orson, and all of a sudden it broke headlines, and they were named the brains and the beauty of Hollywood.
Mm.
So they, again, 1942, she meets Victor. 16 months later, in September of 43, her and Orson Welles are married.
Whoa.
Um, Then in December of 44, so a year and some change later, she ends up
Mm-hmm.
having her first child and her daughter with Orson. Um, and of course, Columbia Cone is out here in the background, mad that she got pregnant because this was seen as the height of her career at the time.
Mm-hmm.
She was absolutely hitting everything. She was in the headlines. She was a Hollywood it girl, and then she got pregnant. Um, and people report that when she had the baby, truly all she wanted in life was just love and a family. She was so happy. She just enjoyed her daughter. She took a break from acting to raise her and be with her, and she was
Mm-hmm.
just absolutely in love and enamored. And then uh over time she ends up finding out that Orson is having affairs behind her back.
Wow.
And it just takes me back to that phrase of, if they're going to cheat for you, they'll cheat on you.
Mm-hmm.
So 1945, she separates from him. So she's separated from this man that she was in love with. And she ends up landing her biggest role that she's most known for, the femme fatale role, Gilda. And that is a role from the film. Give me 2 seconds because, again, these gloves do not work. Oh my God. I kind of feel like I was in school again taking these notes.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. So, Gilda is actually the name of the movie. Oh my
Mm.
God, I can't believe I forgot that. So
Mm-hmm.
the role in that movie is, there's kind of a guy that's from America, and he's a gambler, and then he ends up going to Buenos Aires, Argentina, which is in that movie. He goes there and he ends up going to casino, cheating in a game. The casino owner is like, "Oh, like me and you, like I'll give you a job." Like this guy cheats, ends up getting himself a job, and then
Mm-hmm.
he ends up being like, "Oh, we're like all fine." And then the casino's wife is Gilda,
Mm-hmm.
who the American gambler used to see. So she's just in this role where she had been with both men, and it was like this love affair movie, just super sultry. It was so big
Mm-hmm.
that in 1945, one of the atomic bombs that they dropped, they named it Gilda and painted a picture of Rita Hayworth's likeness on it, and then dropped it on people.
Wow.
And she was reportedly super mad about this. But that's,
Mm-hmm.
again, like, she was the number one pinup girl number during World War II.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have to think all of these men have her photo, know of her, see her in this role, and they paint her on the side of this atomic bomb, which I'm just like, if I was her, I would be pissed too. And she was reportedly
Right.
super pissed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do not use me to kill people.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a whole situation that happened, but that's just how enamored all these men were with her, and how big her femme fatale personality had gotten.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that got her negative media attention, where she was being painted as a harlot, and they were like, this is not a good woman, or all of that stuff. So that was sort of what was going on with that. Um, and with that reputation, she, like I said, with the negative press, she's got this disdain for the press because they were just always painting her out to the characters that she was typecast as.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said before, she's still super shy. She's very shy, reserved, just wants to have her family. And not to say that there's not another side of the coin where she's kind of hopping and having affairs and to different men, and there is a certain side of that. And she was known to be a little bit of an alcoholic as she got older herself, but she was just so mad because she was painted as this femme fatale when it was just a role that she was playing.
Right.
And Hollywood was forcing her into that. And again, just nobody cared who Margarita was, they just cared who Rita was and who they
Mm-hmm.
wanted Rita to be. um, so after all of this, she makes so much money, has so much popularity, that she just decides to form her own production company.
Oh,
Makes her
nice.
own entire production
Mm-hmm.
company, and she had gotten so big that Columbia Cone couldn't do anything. She cuts ties with him, leaves him in the dust. Has her own
Nice.
movie company, married to one of the biggest directors and writers in Hollywood, and she's just like, I'm doing it on my own at this point. And I think that's sort of an attitude that a lot of people have, is that
Uh-oh.
but I'm not paying that. I'm
What's
not
that?
doing it. She very much
We
stood up
just
for
had a
herself.
full we had a full freeze for a second. Last thing I caught was that's how a lot of people felt.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's how. Okay. So she, again, had this career where she was just under the thumb of these men,
Mm-hmm.
and then eventually she got so much popularity and star power, she started her own production company.
Mm-hmm.
And people say that's sort of a lot of her personality. She was very vibrant and vivacious, and she was like, I'm not taking your shit because I don't have to. I mean, recall that she rejected that Columbia executive producer. She could have been having bigger roles sooner in her career, but she rejected Cone, wouldn't sleep with him. And so at this point, she's just standing up for herself, very strong and very just like, I'm not taking it.
Mm-hmm.
So she starts this company, and then she starts her own production company. Is kind of filming her movie. She's having successes, and she's reported as making really good profits. And she's 25% owner of this production company,
Mm-hmm.
and she's doing really well. And then in the mid to later 40s, Orson Welles releases Citizen Kane, and at the time, like now, it is known as like such a well-known, like, oh, if you watch film you need to watch Citizen Kane.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually so provocative at the time that it got him blacklisted in Hollywood.
Okay.
um and what's so interesting is she, again, at this time Orson is cheating on her.
Mm-hmm.
She starts her own production company. He gets blacklisted from Hollywood. She makes a movie with him which they both star in together, and then at the end of the filming, they just end. He, is just like, okay, the relationship's over. So literally, she saves his career, gives him a movie to make, and he's out. But she did gain from that. She wasn't a femme fatale in this movie. She was actually a dramatic character, a full other side of the coin. She wouldn't have to be the
Mm-hmm.
sultry character. She just got to be this deep drama, intriguing character. Which I guess intriguing still as a femme fatale is a thing, but intriguing in a different way. And it was a different type of role that she'd been wanting to play because again, she more closely aligned with that sort of role. And so they end up filming. Everything shoots. He ends the marriage at the end of this film.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then after this, their marriage is ended, and she goes on to film a movie called Loves of Carmen. And this was a role about a woman that was a gypsy who was just entranced in music and dance. So it ended up being another musical movie for her. And so
Mm-hmm.
after this really big split, she ends up having this beautiful movie where she just gets to really pull into herself. And she says that that role was just truly who she felt she was. And it just was so much a part
Oh,
of
that's
her.
amazing.
And so it was very interesting, that she got to have that. And then
Mm-hmm.
um, after the filming of that movie, she had a hard year. Two movies, got left by her husband, who had been cheating on her,
Mm-hmm.
and she goes to Europe for a vacation. While she's on vacation, she runs into this man named Prince Ali Khan, and he is a prince, so literally Prince Ali.
Oh wow.
Um, and she said they met and it was just this
Mm-hmm.
instant passion, and they had, she was reeling off of heartbreak, and so they ended up meeting in a nightclub, and he was just like, oh, you're beautiful, and super pursued her, would write her letters and all of this stuff, and spent all this time pursuing her and going after her. And um, she just, they had this chemistry. She said it felt like they met each other through dancing, and it just felt like they were dancing all the time. And um, he actually was in the middle of a divorce himself because he was a prince. He was sort of known as a playboy and a party boy, so she didn't really give in
Mm-hmm.
at first. And so he just kept pursuing and kept pursuing and kept pursuing and putting in all of this work and this effort to, court her and give her all of these things. And so then after both of their divorces finalized, they both start prepping, and she starts prepping to be Princess Rita. Um,
Oh wow.
so after she met him, she actually left Hollywood and moved in with him, and he owned a lot of property in France. So she was spending a lot of time in Europe and France at this time. And she left her career and said she didn't regret it one bit. Her career just made her money up to that point, and it was just something that she was kind of like controlled into a lot of her life, and she left it for love. And so she ended up marrying him, and they ended up having a daughter together, Princess Yasmin. And uh, he again was a super socialite and a partier, and she was more
Wait,
shy
his
and
name was Prince
reserved.
Ali, and then their daughter's name was Princess Yasmin.
Yes, I don't know if that came back around later for Disney, and that's why they chose that. But
Mm-hmm.
yes, so she. ends up being in France and trying to learn the French language and, act as a princess, but he's just a super social person. And so she, ended up meeting him in a club,
Mm-hmm.
can't find the right love in the club. So she ends up, just not really loving the life. And she just ends up being, wanting to reclude and just be to herself and raise her daughters with her family. But, you know, her husband is just out and about doing things all the time, and they constantly are in the press because they're prince and princess, and she's a Hollywood actress princess, and it's just such a fairy tale. And
Mm-hmm.
not sure if this was at the same time, but Grace Kelly ends up becoming princess of Morocco. So there's just like all this, moving on, and she's just, I hated the press from before, didn't want to be back in it, and then she
Right.
was struggling to learn the French language, so she just ends up moving back to the US, and so kind of separates after 2 years of being married to this prince. Um, and when she was back in America, she didn't really have money. And of course, this is like 1940s. The men aren't just going to give her money. So
Mm-hmm.
she ends up having to go back to Columbia Cone
Oh
and back
no.
up under him. And he, of course, is not her fan. He left her. She outdid him. She played his game and did
Mm-hmm.
better and, freed herself. And so she ended up having to go back to him and signing with him again on salaries at this point. And he just keeps giving her mediocre role after mediocre role. Like her career just kind of is stagnant. She's not getting that same pizzazz that she did with that role in Gilda.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think around this time, there's also another movie she filmed, which is called CoverGirl. And this was a movie that she did, and I'm pretty sure this was with Gene Wilder. And again, this is the guy that did Singing with the Rain.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure he's the one that played Willy Wonka later, but he did this dance movie, and CoverGirl is her second most known movie after Gilda. So she does have a little bit of a hit here. And again, it's a dancing movie, and she just had, her magic come to screen when she was dancing and she was in these elements that she'd been trained in, as you couldn't deny her star power. And so she had that movie. Um, and then now she ends up trying to reconnect with Ali, and it doesn't really work out. And so divorce number three hits in 1953. So now she's divorced from Ali, and she is just, kind of moving around. Again, this is kind of a time of mediocre movie roles, and she ends up meeting this man named Dick Hames, and he is a nightclub singer from Argentina who moved to the U.S. and um, they just had this super quick, passionate thing, and he was having trouble with his citizenship here in the US and his visa. And so he ended up taking on debts and stuff as well. And everyone was like, girl, what are you doing? Like, do not marry this man. But then he's like, oh, like I'm about to get kicked out and sent back to Argentina and like I owe too much money. So she marries him and pays off his debts.
Oh no.
And this man, he was like, sure, he was fine in the nightclub scene. People kind of knew of him, but he really was gaining traction once Rita Hayworth married him. All of a
Right.
sudden, he would take her on as many of his tours as possible so that he could have Rita Hayworth in the audience, or Rita Hayworth was in the building. It was this big
Mm-hmm.
actress, and really boosted his career.
Right.
But at the same time, he's ends up, just being super manipulative, and um, he
Using her like all the
while they're
older
on
guys.
exactly, and so she ends up um, leaving her kids with his mother,
Mm-hmm.
and apparently the mother just up and left the kids, and they were found digging in trash by neighbors, so they reported them to social
Oh my
services,
god.
and she ends up getting in a big fight with him about it, and he publicly slaps her across the face in the middle of this club called Coconut Grove. And so like literally just another tumultuous marriage, and her kids get social service involved, and she leaves him, and reportedly after he slapped her in public like that, she never saw him again.
Hmm.
And she ends up having to pay for the legal fees to the court battle, and ends up having to like sell the shares of her production company just to pay for these legal battles. And then eventually her husbands that she had kids with, Orson Welles and Ali Khan,
Mm-hmm.
step up, and they're like, oh no, she's a good person, the charges are dropped, but her shares are gone. She lost her stake in the company, so she's
Yeah.
lost money now, just so she could stay the sole custody of her kids. And then also something I heard was apparently when Ali Khan and her were getting separated and divorced, um, the he tried to take custody of their daughter,
Mm-hmm.
and she fought him on it in court, and apparently he also had been seen dancing with like one of her Hollywood arch nemesis
Mm.
actresses. So that was sort of why she wanted to divorce him. So he was a party boy, and then she moved on to this guy named Hames, who just ends up being like this really, you
Horrible.
know, opportunistic,
Mm-hmm.
horrible nightclub singer that uses her for her fame and talent to make himself money, and then ends up getting CPS. She's, just all this money and everything. She's losing to these men. So in 55, she files for divorce from Hames. And then so she's kind of spent 4 years off the screen at this point, and in 1957, she finally decides to get back into acting and tries really hard and really successfully moves away from that sultry love goddess character that she had been from the late 30s all through the 40s and the early 50s at this point,
Mm-hmm.
and she gets to go into more mature and dramatic parts. And in 1957, she did a movie with Frank Sinatra called Pal Joey, and that movie finally allowed her to bring in those dramatic roles for herself, and she officially cuts ties with Cone and Columbia Records, or Columbia Studios. Finally, that's the end of
Nice.
him. And so she gets these sultry roles, and then she's just and Frank Sinatra reportedly, when this film was made, he was of course big at this time, super big singer, and he
Mm-hmm.
was like they were gonna put his name first on the bill. He was like, absolutely not. Rita Hayworth is so much more than I am, and so her name got put at the top of the billing just because, he was like, she's just that much of a star power. This is how well respected and loved she was by people in her industry.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then she's acting and she's doing the movies, and then she ends up meeting a director on the movie called Separate Tables. And this director's name was James Hill, and he was someone that had seen her, and he was like, she's just amazing, she's a star power, I need to have her, I need to put her in one of my movies. And he actually ended up owning his own production company, or was in a really big high position in the production company. um, and he used his influence to try and book her into this serious role in Separate Tables. Um, and in this role, the character was this woman who was older and afraid of growing alone and without love. And the behind the scenes talk was the director really didn't have to give this her any notes. She played once again into herself. This was the
Mm-hmm.
first role since that movie where she kind of played the dancing gypsy, where she was just, this was who she was, and she resonated with it so well, and she just was in tune with that character and really played it well.
Mm-hmm.
um, During the filming of this, of course, she ends up, falling for and getting to know this James Hill man, and they end up marrying in February of '58. And this is just the next year after she did that movie with Frank Sinatra. So this is kind of moving fast. So 3 years after divorce from Hames, she's now married to Hill. And she married him, and he was just sort of this director and this big executive, and she was just ready to settle down, have this slow family life as she had been before. But again, here's a man that sees all this opportunity. She did so well in two dramatic roles
Mm-hmm.
that all of a sudden, his position in this company, he's starting to think about his business more. He starts, foreseeing all these dramatic roles, and starts pushing her into a acting career more. And
Mm-hmm.
so she's ready to retire. Once again, here's a man she marries for love. He just ends up using her for the benefit of his company and for the money. Um, and in '58, specifically, there's this movie called They Came to Cordora, and it is a movie that he convinced her to play. She didn't want to do it. And then on set, they lived in these cabins at night, and would sleep there. And he's a director, she's a lead
Okay.
actress in this
Mm-hmm.
movie, and people reportedly hear them fighting all the time. And one night, apparently, they had both been drinking and getting in this fight and just being mad at each other, and he ends up hitting her. And the next day at makeup, they're like, "Oh, um, like what's going on? Like what happened? Did your husband hit you?" She's like, "Oh yeah, he hits me all the time." So once again, here we are in an abusive marriage,
Mm-hmm.
with Rita Hayworth. And then she films one last movie with Hill, and then she's just like, you know what? This is another abusive relationship. You're using me as a cash cow. You're hitting me. You're mad at me. You don't care who I am. You care who Rita Hayworth is and what she can do for you in your pockets.
Mm-hmm.
And so, um, in leaving him, she's said that she told him he used people too much. And she's quoted as saying, "Why bother to write when it is so easy to use the talents of others?" And left him.
Uh,
Yeah. So
She
again,
got
just
him.
she's gonna stand up for herself
Mm-hmm.
eventually. Um, so now that is marriage number 4 that she is divorced and out of, and she does not marry again. Um, and at this point, she is known for being into alcohol and having alcoholism, and she's just known for having this problem. And then kind of about the later 60s, people sort of notice that she's just forgetting things a lot. And they're just like, okay, like we don't really know what's going on. She's continue acting, but it's getting harder because she can't really remember things, and
Mm-hmm.
she just is sort of just out of her element. And they're just like, oh, like maybe it's the alcoholism, but it's not really the alcoholism. Like even when she's not drunk, she's like this. Um, and her friends were call a night where she invited them over for dinner. All of her friends show up, and she greets them with a butcher knife in the courtyard of her home, and she's like, who are you, what do you want, get off my property, I don't know who you are. And they're like, you don't know who else it's we're your friends, what are you talking about? She's like, no,
Mm-hmm.
you're fans, I'm not signing autographs, get out of here. And so everyone runs and leaves, and then apparently 2 days later she calls and she's like, why didn't you guys come to dinner, where were you guys at, like what was going on? So just sort of like moments like that where she just
Mm-hmm.
goes into these fits of rage or anger, and um, it's just not it. And then, this even reported that Orson Welles says that kind of in their marriage, she started having a little bit of these fits. And so um, she, but her daughter, Princess Yasmin, because her daughter with Orson Welles and her kind of got estranged at this point. And
Mm-hmm.
so her daughter, Princess Yasmin, kind of says that, she was just lovely and bubbly and just, fortunately kind of fell into alcoholism in her later years because as she was forgetting, it just got harder to deal with. And sort of one of the big turning points in her career was in 1961. She was like, you know what, I'm going to go act on Broadway, because a lot of stories for people that were in Hollywood, and this is even with Judy Garland, they would act on Hollywood movies, but people were just like, that's not serious. No one cares about you. You're not a real actor. So
Mm-hmm.
she, of course, was a singer, dancer, and actor. And she's like, I'm going to go to Hollywood and I'm going to have that esteemed achievement under my belt. And she studies for this role, and then she gets out there to audition, and she just kind of blanks. She can't remember the script, and she freezes on stage, and she ends up not getting the role. And it is just this point that people who were close to her said it was just so devastating for her.
Mm-hmm.
um, she really wanted to make it to Broadway. She really wanted to have that career jump for herself, and she couldn't. She kept forgetting things. And then
Yeah.
um, 1968, her dad ends up passing, which is something really hard for her. And she kind of just continues working through the 60s and the 70s. And again, she's having this problem with memory, and she's, falling further into alcoholism. And, eventually the rumor got around Hollywood that you couldn't work with Rita Hayworth unless you had cue cards. And so it was really hard for her to land roles. And she kind of ended up just having a few small roles on television. And I don't know if you know anything about the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Heard of it, don't know about it.
Um, so it's a super funny show, but or actually I think it was a Carol Burnett show. I'm lying.
Ah,
It was
okay.
Carol Burnett, which was a
Mm-hmm.
comedy sketch show.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Lily Tomlin, who plays Frankie and Grace and Frankie, she was
Yeah.
actually on that show with Carol Burnett. She's known as one of like, I could go into her. She's a super big comedian,
Mm-hmm.
but Rita Hayworth goes on the show and she does a sketch, and she's like reading and has a menu at a restaurant, but you can clearly tell she's reading the script from the menu, and it's just showing she truly was having all of these memory issues and this alcoholism issues. And
Mm-hmm.
her last film was called The Wrath of God in 1972. Um, After which she just kind of quit movies. She just couldn't do it anymore. She couldn't remember, and it just wasn't for her. And just over the years, her moods became more and more frantic. And then in 1981, she's finally diagnosed with Alzheimer's,
Mm.
and they didn't know what it was yet, but she was finally diagnosed with it. And so it wasn't necessarily alcoholism, but it also that played into it and exacerbated it over time. But she'd actually
Right.
been suffering from Alzheimer's forever. And as we know now, a lot of that can start happening with brain injury. So just imagine, if she's in these abusive,
Mm-hmm.
physically abusive relationships, I'm sure that was a big part of it.
Right.
Um, and so she kind of just spent, the late 70s, I'll go back a little bit, um, having just making personal appearances. But, that kind of ended for her in 1976. She was on a flight from London and ended up having one of her Alzheimer's episodes. And she just freaked out on a plane, and then a flight attendant called the press, and they got these super unflattering, nasty photos of her that they put all over the place, and they were just like, Rita Hayworth is declining, she's on her decline to hell, Rita Hayworth is off her rocker, and just all the
Mm-hmm.
nasty stuff that publicity or publicists and paparazzi have done forever. And
Mm-hmm.
so she just kind of retires to her home in New York, and so Princess Yasmin at this point is kind of taking care of her, and she lives in an apartment in next to her in New York, and then um, she ends up in LA in the early 80s, and that's where they find out the Alzheimer's. And then, she's back with Princess Yasmin, and she ends up dying in May of 1987 from complications of her Alzheimer's. Her body and her brain just kind of gave out on her in the ending years. And
Mm.
that is the story of Rita Hayworth.
Wow, it's like I don't know. It's so interesting. Like it's almost like something that repeats time and time and time again. It's like
Mm-hmm.
they like this rough upbringing, then these huge stars, and then like this decline where the press turns on them, and then once they're gone, everyone learns to appreciate them. It's not exactly, but also even in our
Exactly.
time, it like gives a reflection of like like Britney Spears. Like
Yeah, I know. It's just literally a tale as old as time, and who knows when we're gonna learn.
And it seems
I
to
mean, it still
happen
happens
even more
today.
with the girls. Like they go through a lot more than like male celebrities seem to do. Because like male
Hmm.
celebrities end up becoming like kings, but then it's almost like all the female celebrities are like puppets, and there's a puppet master behind them controlling everything.
Exactly. Like Rita Hayworth, I mean, I'm sure she had different, flings throughout her life, but she has an affair with Orson Welles, and it's all over the paper.
Mm-hmm.
Orson Welles is known to cheat on her. Nobody cares.
Exactly.
Um, but yeah, and I think it's just this, sad story of a woman who just wanted to live and be happy and in love and have family. And, she just constantly was controlled by
Mm-hmm.
men, and men were like, oh, you can make me money. And they just kept using her for that. And um, I don't know. Like I fully went into it knowing just her name. I knew a little bit about the Gilda bit because I'd watched a couple like old World War II
Mm-hmm.
documentaries, and I knew that she was a red hair. She was, one of those. She heavily inspired Jessica Rabbit,
Right.
but I was just crazy. She had this whole life, and when I was watching these documentaries, they showed these videos of her dancing and just her acting and just absolutely beautiful. I completely get why the world fell in love with her because she was just so good at it. Like I truly urge
Mm-hmm.
people listening and you to like go look up videos of Rita
Yeah, I want to
Hayworth,
go watch the Gilda
dancing or any
movie.
of her roles.
Honestly.
Like just absolutely beautiful. And CoverGirl is one of the ones where she dances and she has this beautiful like pastel like mint green dress with her orange hair. It's just beautiful
Mm-hmm.
colors and Technicolor of course was a really big thing and just absolute old Hollywood magic. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, she had a lot of tragedies and things in her life, but beautiful,
I
beautiful,
I
beautiful
actually really
career,
enjoy
talent,
older. I was
and
gonna say
everything.
I really enjoy older movies. They're like campy and they're like over the top and stuff, but I enjoy them. So I
Hmm.
actually want to go and watch like the Gilda movie. Check it out, see it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I won't say too much, but there's definitely like an old Hollywood movie I want to cover just for the icon
Mm-hmm.
that it was. I actually did notes on it. So actually, this may have been what I was going to cover, but I did notes on it months ago because I just sat at home watching it. I went through this old Hollywood phase. I actually went through a Julia Roberts movie phase earlier this
Mm,
year. So I just been kind of into movies, and just the last one that I really was into was like old 50s Hollywood. And this
mm-hmm.
just clicked last night, and I was like, oh, this is perfect. But yeah, that is the story of Rita Hayworth, and I'm not going to mess her name up, Margarita Carmen Cancino.
Mm-hmm. Well, that
So
was
yeah,
amazing,
that
and
was my obsession this
also
week.
it was so long that that's gonna be the full episode, Kendall, because
Really?
we are already past an hour on just well, we're at an hour on
I
just your
figured you were
part.
just gonna end up cutting my footage.
I was thinking about it like halfway through, and I was like, but I'm genuinely so interested that I want the full story of this because it's so in my like league of interest. I was like, I want the full
Yeah.
story, so I don't want to cut it. Like I imagine I was like, if I was listening to this and it's like, okay, we're gonna cut it now, then me on the other side would be like, no, I want to hear it. Like I could talk about Pokemon next episode. So I was like, no, we're gonna
Yeah.
finish this episode, get the full thing out. It wasn't a review of a movie; it was a full like sharing. So, you know
Yes.
because you guys don't know, we've talked about it and we joke about it, and it was still super long. But literally in the middle of the recording, I stopped recording. I turned to Ken. I was like, Kendall, you need to wrap this shit up. This Country Bears thing, I'm
For
entertained, but it's so long,
it literally took forever. I think we filmed for 3 hours that day.
so
I don't
long.
regret it. I had a good time.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. And again, Country Bears is just one of my comfort movies. Um, but yeah, okay. Well, then yeah, I'm glad I could bulldoze the first episode.
Yeah, we also
Definitely sounds like
started
it's
like
worth
an
it. I'm
hour
heating up.
late. We also started an hour late. You heard Danny over an hour ago. My arepa's ready. I'm so hungry,
Yeah.
so tired. So I'm just like, no, I want to give like my full energy into Pokemon, and I feel like that really was a full episode. And I also enjoy the old Hollywood starlets and stuff like that. Like I could do a whole episode on
Yes.
Veronica Lake because it seems like every Hollywood starlet
She's
from
truly
that
one that
time,
you talk about. Yeah.
yeah, it really they're always really sad. You know, there's always like such a dark side to it, all the glamour and beauty. You know,
Yeah.
Britney Spears said it in Lucky. You know,
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, Lucky was just a tie into all of that. So,
really.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
was literally frantically writing notes all day. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm going to have enough. I hope I have
Mm-hmm.
enough to make it. And, oh, well, look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah. Welcome back, Greg. We're fully in the swing of things.
Yes, exactly.
I was super excited today, like being like, oh my God, like I'm kind of ready to film the podcast. I
Mm-hmm.
don't, it's
Me
just,
too.
I don't know if I know that we kind of do this and it's like a fun little thing for us and it's just a way for
Mm-hmm.
us to spend time together. But I honestly, it's just such a fun creative outlet.
Yes.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
could it have been more organized and more thoroughly put together in a better storytelling way? Sure. But I
Mm-hmm.
refuse to live life that planned out.
Well,
Um,
exactly, and also it's like getting back into it. We're very much both out of practice. You know, so.
yeah. And I just, I gotta think of some more topics. Honestly, this one just came to me literally in the middle of the night. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay,
What's
I'm gonna do
yeah?
that.
What's crazy
And
is
I hope
when
we
we're
have
like,
better and it works. I
mm-hmm.
feel like this works. Like this was like old Hollywood premiere.
Yeah,
The disco balls 70s. Like ignore her. She's not
uh
here.
huh.
But everything else, even
Yeah, I,
just this glove in
honestly,
the ring is everything to me.
when you
Like
came
I
up with
love
the
it.
outfit and I saw the disco ball and everything, I was like, so is he doing a review of the Renaissance tour? That's where I thought we were headed. And
Maybe I should, but I feel like it's so well done, and so much of the story was meant to highlight Black people's history that I don't even want to like put my foot into the
mm-hmm.
space because so many people do it better. I've
Yeah.
watched videos on it. I fully have. I fully suggest go out there, research it. Renaissance tours, everything. And
Mm-hmm.
again, these gloves were in the presence of Beyonce.
Yes.
Like she was in the same room as these gloves. So these
Mm-hmm.
are treasured forever,
Mm-hmm.
even if they are pleather and they make my arms smell like fish. They're treasured forever.
I remember you telling me the first time you showed off your outfit and you were showing off and you're like, these make my hands smell like fish. And I'm like, okay.
And it doesn't matter because nobody smells it but me. But I'm just like, it took me aback. And
Uh
I
huh.
messaged, like, I bought them off Etsy, and I was like, hey girl, like, cute gloves, but why the hell does this smell like fish? She's like, try washing it. So I literally like turned the gloves inside out, like washing them with like Dawn dish
Uh
soap. I'm
huh.
like, if this can clean the oil off of ducks, this is cleaning the fish smell off of this bitch. And it kind of worked, but I ended up having to spray it with a bunch of cologne. And then
Mm-hmm.
after the concert, I was like, I'm not taking these off till I get home. And I took them off and just had to like go stand over the sink and was just like cleaning my arms because like they just smell so bad. I will maybe update the people.
Uh huh.
Um, but yeah,
Love the gloves, girl. Why does it smell like fish?
but I meant it because you know.
Uh huh.
Okay, whatever. I'm not gonna bash her business. Just be weary, people, when you're buying pleather and leather things off of the internet. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
it'll smell like fish.
Well, that is a wonderful finale to our unofficial start of season two. Which I'm still gonna like when we upload this. I'm still gonna just put it as the next number. I think episode 12 is what this is. Like I'm still just gonna like
Yeah,
number it like that. But it's technically we're in our season two era. Too big of a change to not call it a new season. You know.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's like the next jump, but it would have been more of a jump if you had actually posted the last episode. But
Look, as far as everyone
retroactive
knows,
listeners, go figure.
it's that episode. Episode 10 was the season 1 finale, you know?
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
now they'll
for sure.
know when that episode comes out and they're like, "Oh, this is the finale." And then they'll have another episode, you know?
Ooh, you know what I just realized? I
What?
get to be the title card for this episode on our
Yes.
Instagram.
Mhm.
Also,
Oh yeah, we want
I've
to
got to
talk
talk to you
about
about that
people. Uh-huh. Exactly.
offline.
All right.
Hmm.
Well,
But yeah,
I guess that's everything. I guess I'll do the little
Yeah.
ouch spiel. Uh, the definitely, if you're listening on YouTube, a thumbs up, subscribe always helps. Feel free to comment. We'll definitely get back to you. I don't know if it'll be me or Kendall, but one of us will. And then also, if you're listening on Spotify, a review also helps there. We're on both platforms. And then
Yes.
Kendall is our Instagram guy, so you can do your
Hmm.
little spiel.
And yeah, follow us on Instagram at uh, literally obsessed the pod.
Hmm.
I think that's it. I don't even remember at this point.
I think so. It's gonna be tagged in the Instagram and on the Spotify
It
somewhere.
should be. I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
Uh huh.
it'll be all tagged. It'll all be there. If you found us, then you can easily find that.
Mm-hmm.
Where we will post fun little photos. Every episode, we take a photo
Mm-hmm.
for the themes, and then we kind of give you a fun little description and um, follow us on there. Comment on there. We will talk to you. We'll like your comments. Yeah, just interact with us.
Mm-hmm.
We're lonely. We need friends. Um,
Oh my
I just
gosh,
moved to a whole
Kendall.
new state. I
Uh huh.
barely have anybody. I need people to talk to me, validate me, give me attention. I'll do the same for you. This can be mutually beneficial. It doesn't have to be toxic. Um, just let
Kendall.
us know what you think. We're glad you're here.
Oh my god. All right. Talk to you
All right.
later.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.